I reached out to the author, and while obviously I think that some of the characterization of me personally is unfair, I do understand the concern.
That's Pete Buttigieg defending himself after a hashtag calling him a mother effer went viral recently. And that was in response to an old video featuring Pete Buttigieg. It's from 2011, and he was talking about why the Black community is having difficulty breaking out of a cycle of poverty. And here's what his answer was.
The greatest part of the population right now are people my age. And a lot of people my age don't have anything to do. And if they would just go and mentor,
there'd be another inclusion in this whole thing.
And you got these because the kids need to see evidence that education is going to work for them, right? So you see a lot of parts of
that's
town
part of the motivation.
Yeah, because you're motivated because you believe that at the end of your educational process there's a reward, there's a stable life, there's a job, and there are a lot of kids, especially the lower income minority neighborhoods, who literally just haven't seen it work. There isn't somebody they know personally,
and I think that's
who testifies to the value of education. So yeah,
to meet that person.
You bet.
They need to get that push from somebody other than if a family member isn't enthused about their educational history and lets them just throw their bag in the corner, like you said earlier, then things aren't going to happen.
So that conversation, and particularly Buttigieg's statements, led to a lot of anger for very legitimate reasons, because it puts the onus onto the parents and Black families. And so there was a very powerful piece written in The Root by Michael Harriot. We talked about it on this show, and he provided evidence of the systemic racism that exists, which leads to a cycle of poverty among the African-American community. And just to read you a little piece of that, well, first let's take a look at the headline. The headline was Pete Buttigieg is a lying MF, and that's why the hashtag had gone viral. And then just a little excerpt from his piece. Mayor Pete's bull, you get it, is not just wrong, it is proof. It proves men like him are more willing to perpetuate the fantastic narrative of Negro neighborhoods needing more role models and briefcase carriers than make the people in power stare into the sun and see the blinding light of racism. And then he continues to write, get along moderates would rather make ish up out of whole cloth than wade into the waters of reality. Pete Buttigieg doesn't want to change anything, he just wants to be something. Okay, so since this went viral, I suspect that Buttigieg realized, okay, I need to make things better. So he actually gave Michael Harriot a call. And I'm gonna get to the details of what happened, what transpired in that call in just a minute. But first, I actually wanna go to some more video of Buttigieg defending himself.
What I said in that comment before I became mayor does not reflect the totality of my understanding then and certainly now about the obstacles that students of color face in our system today. I believe I was speaking about the need for mentorship and the need for career pathways. But the problem is, to the extent that that feels like it's validating a narrative that sometimes blames the victim for the consequences of systemic racism. I understand why he was upset, and I understand the perspective and largely agree.
So there he is taking a little bit of responsibility, but also saying, hey, it's not the entirety of my thoughts on this issue. These are clips of Buttigieg after he had his call with Harriot. I'm gonna give you Harriot's perspective on that call in just a minute, but let's finish up with Buttigieg's side of the story. Take a look.
Well, he expressed what he expressed in the article and went into a lot more depth about, I think, the concern of this perspective that makes it sound like, it's all the fault of students of color or somehow their families that they struggle to get ahead, when the reality is there are so many barriers that our system puts up. And I want to make sure I communicated that I'm very conscious of the advantages and privileges that I have had, not through any great wealth, but certainly through education, through the advantages that come with being white and being male. And that's part of why I know I've got to make myself useful as a candidate and as president.
He sounds like Obama.
All right, so
inflection.
Yeah. That's his perspective. Now, before we get to Michael Harriot, and by the way, he's such a great writer. You should read his latest piece on this as well. But I want to open this up. Ida, do you want to jump in?
I sure do. I mean, I feel like if this was an isolated incident when it comes to him, then maybe we could just give him that pass. But because he has a history, like when he talks about the impediments that are set forth before people of color, a corrupt police department is one of them. And so when we start analyzing these people, because a lot of us like to extend the olive branch, all we need is an apology and a good couple of words, and we melt as people of color, and we've been indoctrinated to always be forgiving and always have to be the ones to explain our own oppression to the people who participate in the oppression of us. I just say a couple of things. This is why the argument of the gay struggle versus the struggle of people of color cannot be, have to be two separate struggles, because Pete Buttigieg is a white man who nobody would know he's gay unless he told you, and exercises his privilege and his oppression on others, and that's not the reality for people of color who cannot hide. So, but I also, at the end of the day, don't want to be a pessimist. I appreciate the fact that he was willing to have a conversation, because there are a lot of people who are not willing to have the conversation.
I did a drawing of Pete Buttigieg. Take a look at it. He is just white blankness, and you can put on it whatever the hell you want. And I've talked to so many people who just go, how about Pete? Yeah. And that's it. In this way where it's like, I was tasked with we all kind of divided it up, and we had to do our live videos for TYT covering all the town halls when there were 70 town halls with the 70 different Democratic candidates. And I watched Pete Buttigieg, and I am also a blank white piece of paper. And I am used to that cadence. Mm-hmm. That's how you talk to me. It's how I've been talked to by every teacher, every camp counselor, and that's just white people trying to be like, hey, can I talk to you? That's how, you know who else talks like that? Comey talks like that. Mm-hmm. Everything's kind of a question at the end, even though it's definitely a statement.
That's a good point, actually. I never really noticed that.
And that's great. And talk about privilege, like this dude, he's like, I acknowledge my privilege. Can I still keep it? Like, yes. Can I still be the mayor of South Bend, suddenly the president of the United States? Yeah. Can I do it? Even though I've not proven to you, the black voter in the Democratic Party, that I have done really anything to benefit anyone remotely like you.
I just want to note that, like Brett, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be, my perspective on how you talked about Buttigieg in the very beginning, when he first entered the race and we were learning about him, no one knew who he was, you were very open to him.
Yeah, I liked him.
Yeah, he did.
I still like how he talks because of every I mean, if he talks about like an example, there's a jillion examples of Pete Buttigieg in the world. People like white dudes who just talk like that, and I get to see him, and that is the example of like that's what they told me in school to do.
Yeah.
And if I followed it, I would be successful. And he followed it, and he became successful.
So the only reason why I'm bringing that up, like how you perceived him in the beginning, is because I think that there's like this idea among some members of the audience, I don't know what the percentage is, that like from the get-go, like as soon as this election started, we were in it for Bernie and that's it. And like, okay, so my personal journey was, I do like Bernie more than everyone, but I gotta do my job responsibly, and I gotta have an open mind, and I gotta give the other candidates a chance, right? But then like, how long can you hold off? Like, you like what you like, and you push for the candidate that you think is gonna serve your best interest. And for me, it was Bernie. And you went through, I think, I don't know who you support yet, actually, but you went through a similar journey with like Buttigieg.
I did.
And I give you credit for that, because you were super open to him, and then like stuff started coming out, and you're like, I don't know, man.
I mean, for me, yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, in all fairness, because from where I'm sitting, because I'm a guest on this show, you guys were fair to him, because I immediately was like, nah. And then you guys were like, yo, he's polling well, he's actually really smart, because I did the first debate. The only thing that I was gonna say is, because you made an excellent point. What is worse? The white people who deny that racism exists, or the ones who admit that it exists and then still don't do anything about it? Like, which one pokes you harder? Because that's where we're caught between right now. And we need the white people, which are tend to be a lot of these TYT people who say it's wrong and we need to do something to fix it. And that's where the battle is for me. And I just want to make sure that I make clear about that I don't, because I know what's going to come for me saying separating the gay and the black and the people of color struggle. I'm not disputing that gay people have a struggle in America. Very well aware of it. I was raised by a gay man that was murdered in a hate crime for being gay. But what I'm saying is that when you start to commingle and you ignore intersectionality, there are gay people who are black that are too being oppressed by that thinking. Yeah. And that is a white gay man. So that's why I'm like, this is not this right here.
So I want to go to Michael Harriot's perspective on the call, because again, to Buttigieg's credit, he didn't have someone on the campaign call Michael Harriot. He called Michael Harriot directly and they discussed everything. In Harriot's piece, there was this one line that I thought was super powerful. And he said, my problem with his comments was not that they were wrong, it's that he knows they were wrong. And I thought that was such a great way of putting it, because the evidence is out there. The evidence of systemic racism, right? Whether it has to do with the school systems, how various schools are funded, majority minority schools get way less funding because of the way public education is funded in this country. When it comes to interest rates on loans, when you're trying to pay for college, there's a huge difference in what white students pay versus what minority students pay. So he provided all those examples in his original piece. But here are some excerpts from his recent piece after he had a conversation with Buttigieg. He said, we have to disabuse ourselves from the notion that the problem with educational inequality is because of an esoteric lack of support, I explained. That's a lie. And a man as educated as yourself knows it's a lie. And to regurgitate that narrative publicly is not just dangerous, it is malpractice. And then he continues to write, a mediocre white kid with mediocre intelligence and mediocre parents can easily make it in America, I explained blackly. A smart black kid with smart parents and a supportive community still has to fight every day to hope to reach the levels of what a mediocre white man accomplishes. And odds are they still might not make it. So there's more. I mean, it's just.
Obama and Donald Trump. Obama had to be excellent to be the president of the United States.
That's such a good point, yeah.
You know what I mean? And even still, his excellence was questioned at every single turn.
Yeah.
You know, but how offensive to see 4 white men. This is how racist America is. 4 white men sit down and discuss racism without even including the point of view of a black person or a person of color in the discussion of racism.
Let me give you some more from Harriot's latest. Here's why black voters support black candidates. When you go into a room and sit around a table of white men, we're worried that this is what will happen, that a room full of white people will talk about role models and confidence and crime, and no one in the room will say, hold up, we can't talk about any of this without talking about racism. We can't talk about education without talking about discrimination. That is our fear.
And that's that. For so many, I mean, I know a lot of like white people who profess themselves progressives, and it's just this fun. It's almost like it's this fun thing to say. It would be cool if. It would be cool, and it's like it would be cool if we had a gay guy. It was cool when we had a black guy. Is it? But it's not. Wouldn't it be cool if we solved these actual problems,
right,
and faced them head on and did something about them
and provided support to a black leader who does want to do something about systemic change and encourage them and provide positive reinforcement, because there's an entire antiquated system that's working against him or her in that case.
Yeah.
Like think about how or what the reaction was to Obama when he said one tiny thing about the Trayvon Martin case.
Yeah.
When all he said was Trayvon Martin could have been my son. And like the country went crazy over that. I mean, it's just, that's where we're at. And let's just be real about it.
Because they have to face the fact, they have to admit who they are when they say, we see your point, Obama. And how dare you? That's not why we let you be there. And that is why I always give Obama a pass in certain areas where I cannot hate Obama, because Obama could never do anything that Donald Trump has done. Obama could never live his life the way Donald Trump has lived his life, and had to build himself from the ground up. And as problematic as he was in some of his policies, as a human being, he's still a better human being than Donald Trump, because most people are. Most people are. Most people do not walk around. I can't believe that is the standard of a human being. And I'm talking about the president of the country that I belong to, I was born in, like, come on, man. Like, until we have a real honest conversation about racism, and there is money behind it, because at the end of the day, this is an economic issue. We're never gonna make a change, because all of this rhetoric is beautiful. Him standing there, that black woman standing next to him, that's not by accident. That's for optics. All right, a black woman with natural hair wearing a shirt that endorses his campaign, that is for optics, a dark-skinned black woman. You are trying to run game on black people, yo. Like, that right there is unacceptable. Don't tokenize black people. That's racist all unto itself. I would have been like, get her out of this. This is not gonna, you know what I mean?
I wonder if that's a choice from the camera person to be like, here's what's happening.
Whoever it was made a bad choice.
And she's the field press person for him. But like when she's like sitting there and like looking up and checking, there's some amazing moments of just like making sure that it's going the way she wants it, the way it should if he wants to be president.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.